Hey everybody, Wyatt is I here. I'm with my brother Steven,
Howdy out there.
and we're here to talk about The Straight Story from 1999, directed by David Lynch. And it has really become one of my favorite movies of all time. I liked it so much, so I suggested to my brother, and I wanted to get his reaction on it. So, Steven, without further ado, what did you think of The Straight Story?
I think it's one of David Lynch's best movies, maybe even his best movie.
It could be.
Because he's so sporadic and random, and which is good. That's what makes him so famous. However, this one's just straight up a straight story.
It's such an appropriate title. You're just like, this feels like as simple as a movie it could be, but yet I was hanging on like every fucking inch. And I'd have to think it's because of the actor in it. Richard Farnsworth. Oh,
He's in so many things.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah,
He plays the dad, Dolly Parton's dad, in Rhinestone Cowboy.
yes, and he's in Misery. He's the sheriff that gets killed.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it was the golden age of like being old is kind of what I got out of basically the whole story. But I have little notes about the end scene. Obviously, they're both the brothers, and the way their eyes look at the very, very last scene is pretty powerful and pretty much sums up the whole movie. And just like that final scene, and the way it ends is beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Like it couldn't end any better. It's just that's the way it's supposed to end.
Yeah,
you can't do anything. It's a great ending.
Yeah,
Especially for David Lynch.
yeah. I mean,
Because it's an actual ending.
yeah. There's an ending you see, like, you know what's going to happen. You're like, okay. The ending, of course, we're going to get to some spoilers here. So if you haven't seen the movie and you know anything about David Lynch, watch it, because if you haven't seen it, you'll be surprised. You'll be like, holy shit.
I barely finished this movie 2 hours ago.
Yeah, he just finished it.
And the way you explained it to me, because it's a Disney film, which I never thought Lynch would do a Disney production.
Yeah.
Which is completely odd.
Yeah.
And you said you thought it has it feels like a 60s or 70s real life Disney movie like back then. And it's weird because it was filmed in 99. It feels like 89.
It feels older, yes.
It feels way, way older. I had to look it up. I'm like, when was this made? Because the guy looked old, and I was like, he can't be that old. Like, the way I was like, oh, it's from 99. But the way his film style is, because the 80s is probably when the 80s and 90s, that's when Lynch was, I think, at his peak.
Yeah.
So it has that feel still in 89 to me. But the clothing and like the structures it feels like it's like from 79. It has like these 10-year like backward gaps.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe because it's set in the Midwest, and in these small Midwest towns in the 90s,
they were still kind of...
They were still small towns like USA. But, I mean, I'm sure if you go to these towns today, it probably feels more up to date. Like, oh, okay, this feels more... But back then...
There's a fucking Starbucks
like,
there.
we live... Yeah. Well, anyway, let's get to any scenes that really stood out to you. Like, favorite scenes, like, or dialogue, maybe lines.
The old bar, just the look of the old bar, because our grandma owned an old bar.
Yeah.
It just, like, it feels old.
Yeah.
The martini window on the door was fucking awesome.
Yes.
And
a dive bar.
When his friend goes and checks on him, and then the neighbor comes in, and she's like, "Oh my God, what's the number for 911?" Like, it's such a cheesy, overdone joke.
Yeah.
But the one that was hilarious was what the guy says. He's like, "Put that phone down. I gotta call the bar and tell him that he's not coming."
Yeah. It's such old guy talk. Yeah. Like, that feels real. Like, you're like, what are you doing on the ground? Like, he's like, what the fuck do you think he's doing on the ground? And, dude. Also, when he's driving him and he's just in the first gear, obviously, and he just like stalls out. And he's just looking at him like, are you fucking serious? like, which actually brings me to another little scene that doesn't get talked about, but I love it because they're going to the hospital because he just fell. And when he gets inside the hospital room, it feels so cold in there. It feels so lifeless. Like, no wonder why he doesn't want to be in there. Like, Alvin to me represents the old school organic man. Like, he doesn't want to be hooked up to machines. He doesn't want to be hooked up. He's like, no, when I go, I go. Like, he feels, that scene just feels so like, in contrast, like you just can feel it, like or not only that, but it's kind of not only that he's avoiding it, but it's also reminding him he's getting close to the end. Yeah, he's getting close to the end.
Well, like his daughter says, you're 75. You're a century. You're
Calvin Coolidge was in office when you were born. Yeah, yeah.
Another thing that I thought was funny is when he's WD-40ing the hitches, and you're like, you think it's gonna be his truck that he's gonna hitch up to. Yeah. And he just like throws the can. To me, it was funny. He throws the WD can in just like by the tree. Yeah, throws it. Fuck it. Yeah. And then he hooks it up, and it's to the fucking mower that he was mowing the lawn with. Dude, yeah. and that comes to another question: is it a Western? He's on a wagon.
Yeah, yeah. He's a frontiersman.
Yeah, it feels like he's like on a wagon, like there's a horse, which is the mower. And then he's pulling a wagon, or like he could be on the wagon.
And at one time, he's got antlers hanging up. Remember?
I know, yeah.
And so it feels like he's on the front. He's making the treacherous, like the way it was done, like like being out there.
Yeah, he's like that guy asked him. He's like, "How long you been on the road?" He's like, What's the date?"
Yeah.
He's like 5 weeks. Yeah. I left in September.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
It's October.
And how they mention, especially when he goes towards the end, when he's at that graveyard and that priest is talking to him. Just to check. And he's like, remember, he's like, oh, yeah, this oldest cemetery. He's like, oh, yeah, part of the Marquette party that came out here. Yeah, it's a little bit of a throw. Like, he's doing the same thing.
The French trappers.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, that was, I thought that was pretty cool, too.
You know what? Let's get in, since we're laughing a bit. Let's talk about how funny this movie actually is.
It's subtly funny.
Yeah, it's not in your face. Like
no, it's not slapstick at all. But it's hilarious.
Yeah, there's some hilarious stuff. What was kind of funny? This reminded me of old Disney the most is the two brothers that are fixing. And they're kind of in each other's face, like
I wrote that. I wrote that down actually. You asked me what was a good quote. The one that stuck out to me the most was probably "A brother's a brother."
A brother's a brother.
It's very simple, but very powerful.
Do you know who those two guys were? Yeah. Chris Farley's brothers, who just recently died, 97.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, and you see that you could see it in their eyes too. Like they were probably like
brothers hug. I'd say the peak of the movie is when the bikers pass him.
Oh, yeah.
When the bikers pass him and he pulls into their camp and they fucking start cheering him on.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's kind of like his like height as far as like the spirit of the movie.
Yeah.
That's like the peak of the movie right there, because he's like, and now he's hanging around young guys and he feels a little young. Another sad part, lines that I wrote down, he's like, when you're young, you don't think about getting old, nor should you.
You don't think about getting old when you're young. You shouldn't.
And then the guy he's like, what's the worst part about being old?
Well, the worst part of being old is remembering when you was young.
And I was like, fuck, that's gonna suck.
So, once again, simple lines, and they fucking are just like,
thank God we have...
right to the heart,
man. Thank God we have, like, the internet. I mean, you can go through old pictures, because we have, like in our garage, we have pictures from, like, the 80s and 90s, and you can look at it, and we have some video, but with our phone, with technology today, and your phones, and Facebook, and fucking YouTube, you can easily just go back and look.
Yeah. Kids growing up today are going to have a totally different... be able to look at their whole life, like pretty much. That's pretty amazing.
Also, like when the hitchhiker left him a bundle of sticks.
Oh,
like she went and got him firewood.
I was gonna say that's the first time I saw this movie.
Is she gonna jack his wallet?
That's what I thought. I was like, this bitch is gonna rip him off or something like that.
Yeah, because that's what normally would happen in a story plot in Hollywood. Like that, just the worst thing that's gonna happen to you.
Yeah,
and it's not a bad story at all. Like people help him. Like the people that he stays the night with the brothers, the guy that helps him out.
Oh yeah, great stuff. Yeah.
Oh, so like when the old guy's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to the bar. You want to go?" He's like, "I don't drink, but I'll go with you because I like to get around."
Yeah.
Like I could change the scenery.
Which leads to, like you said, there's a high point and then there's a dark point. That leads to a very dark scene actually, which we'll talk about later. Let's not get into that right now. Okay. But another little scene I want to talk about is actually when he first ventures out. And it's such a nice little thing. He's waving around, and then he loses his hat. And he goes to get his hat, and his lawnmower breaks down. Which leads to him getting killing his lawnmower, putting it out of misery.
Well, no, yeah, because he leaves town and all his friends are like,
"What is he doing?
What was he doing? Where is he going?" And then he comes, and then that happens, and then somebody's driving him back on the truck, and they're like watching him come back into town. They're like, "Poor guy."
Yeah, and you can tell they feel for him.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. But he's so determined. Yeah, that's one of my favorite scene. Also, he goes out and he fucking shoots the mower with the shotgun.
Yes.
What's your dad doing with that gun?
It's like, dude, that's so fun. And
that's such a cowboy
he has
thing.
such a fucking look like, you've served me well, but you're done. You're obviously you're done.
But
fucking great.
killing this old horse.
Yeah, exactly. Just like putting him out of his misery. Which leads to another funny scene, actually, is when he's getting prepared and he's at the shop. Yeah, remember that one guy's like, you got 3 containers of gas. That's 15 gallons. What do you need so much gas for, Elvin?
Sig, you're one nosy son of a gun.
You got that right.
Also, like, the grabber.
That's a darn good grabber, Alvin.
When he's like,
I was about to say that.
Like, it's one of the highlights. That's the funniest. Like,
it's gonna take me another month to get one.
Yeah.
Like, I gave you $5 for it. He's like 10. Sold.
Yes. Yes. He wants to help him, but it's a darn good grabber.
What do you need that grabber for, Alvin?
Grabbing.
Let's get back to that stick scene, because it's actually that scene. Like, it made me tear up when the first time I saw it. I was like, holy shit! I was like, that's a great. And now,
bundle of sticks.
Yeah,
when she leaves the bundle of sticks.
Because I was like, I'm pretty sure I've heard that before. I'm pretty sure that's a Native American like story. You know, like that's like some tribe. It sounds like it to me. Like that sounds
feels like it. Well, again,
old.
It that's kind of a Western theme.
Yeah.
When my kids were real little, I used to play a game with them. I'd give each one of them a stick, and one for each one of them. Then I'd say, you break that. Of course they could, real easy. Then I'd say, tie them sticks in a bundle, and try to break that. Of course they couldn't. Then I'd say, that bundle, that's family.